And we are live, and welcome to our wonderful wisdom circle. My name's Sophia from Sacred You, and we have the absolute honor, I have to say, the honor, I'm privileged to be able to present today's wisdom circle, which is the next part of the series of Outgrowing Who You Used to Be with the beautiful Laura. Thank you so much, Laura, for presenting, bringing this wisdom circle to Sacred You. I'm now going to hand it over to you. And so you can tell us why it's part of your why you're passionate about it, and then introduce all these other wonderful speakers. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sophia. Yes. So welcome to Outgrowing Who You Used to Be, the gift of getting uncomfortable. My name is Laura. I am passionate about this because I help people quit frustrating habits. And so part of that process is getting uncomfortable. We have to get a little uncomfortable now so we can be less uncomfortable later. So this is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm excited to be here with all of you wonderful women and excited what you all have to say. And I'll go ahead and let you each introduce yourself. And I'm just going to go around where the order that you're out on my screen. So Tracy, would you mind saying a bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. And good evening and good morning, depending on where our listeners are in the world. I'm coming to you from Arlington, Virginia, and I am a Foreign Service spouse. We've just returned from 12 years overseas. So I am really used to getting uncomfortable, and I look forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then Denise, you're next on my screen order.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, my name's Denise, and I help and support people to self-heal. And I love this subject, getting used to the discomfort is because it is uncomfortable healing ourselves. It is uncomfortable going into those stories. It is uncomfortable to go into our shadows, our darkness, our trauma, to reach the light that is there for us. So I love helping support people do that and give them all my tools so they can then share that with them, with themselves and also their generations after them, their children, their family, everybody. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. And Maria.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here. And my name is Maria. I am a founder of Your True Identity, and I love getting uncomfortable. And I'm doing that with my women through journaling and all sorts of art, scrapbooking, card making, so that we can express our feelings without perhaps words. Sometimes words put air into the ether don't really help much, but feeling our feelings is a big thing. So thank you.
Yeah. I love that. And it is about feeling our feelings, right? If it helps to put it into words, great. But really at the end of the day, it's how do we feel them? Absolutely. Yeah. And Sharon, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Sharon Vidano. I am zooming in from Southern California in the US, and I am a retired criminal defense attorney turned transformational coach. I know all about being uncomfortable in my current situations. So that went from being uncomfortable in my career as an attorney, uncomfortable in my marriage where I was unhappy, and then going through the extreme uncomfortableness, if that's a word, to
Yeah, I think
transition
it
out
is.
of that.
Yeah.
To transition out of that to the new uncomfortable of my new becoming. So there is quite a journey, but I truly believe being uncomfortable is a way and it is a divine signal to ourselves and our soul that it's time to get moving and do something different.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that idea of, it's time to get moving, right? It's not a bad thing. It's a signal. Love that. Perfect. And so for this wisdom circle, I'd love for us to focus on, because Sophia said that this is, one in a series, right? I'd love for us to focus on uncomfortable emotions, which sometimes are referred to as negative emotions. And I try to avoid that term because I don't really see any emotions as negative or positive. It's all just information, it's data, right? So I like to kind of plant that seed of, for anybody who's maybe watching, that these aren't necessarily negative emotions. We'll talk about them as uncomfortable emotions, maybe even non-preferred emotions if we really want to lean into a preference one way or the other, but certainly not negative emotions. And so I'd love to hear from everyone. How do you handle uncomfortable emotions when they arise? What do you do with that, so that you can move through it or process it or use it to your advantage? And so we'll go around now. I'd love to hear how you handle it. And then I'm going to go next question, just to give you a heads up, will be, how did you handle these emotions earlier in your life? 10, 15, 20 years ago? Is it different now from before? But we'll start with now. How do you handle uncomfortable emotions? And whoever would like to go first, go ahead, and we can go in any order if anybody feels called. Yes, Tracy, go ahead.
I'd be glad to jump in. And Sharon, I was a federal agent for Secret Service, and I've been in a female and mostly dominated field. So I completely get the perspective that you're coming from. And I think when I get really uncomfortable, I try now in my early 50s to keep a mindset that this is good for growth, for my own growth, but it does feel vulnerable because we change countries every 3 years with the US Embassy. I'm constantly having to reinvent myself. And I've had to dig deep because there's not a lot of validation when everything is new, your home, the language, the food, the community. There's nothing there that's really grounding you in familiarity. So I have really had to work on the discomfort of being surrounded by the unfamiliar, by feeling vulnerable, by feeling a fish out of water, where maybe I don't fit in yet because I'm still learning what are the norms in this new place.
Ah, I love how you said, I don't fit in yet, which opens the door for, I'm going to fit. I don't fit in yet, but I can see it there for me. And I love that. And I also love that you talked about reinventing yourself, which I think also kind of falls into that. I don't feel comfortable yet, right? How do I reinvent myself so that I can be in that space? So I think that's wonderful. And lots of experience with being uncomfortable if you're moving every few years. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to go next?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, I think for every situation that comes up with me is different. So, but there's that overlying of that cover that I do go to every time. And it's like when stuff are happening, like this week, over the last couple of weeks, my body has been talking to me because it's
Mm.
felt uncomfortable in spots. And it's like I'm healthy and I recognize all of that. So what is really going on with me? Because our body talks to us, as well as, that's the discomfort that I reached before, and sometimes that is the discomfort for others as well, as that you reach that discomfort on a physical level because I'm not listening to the little nudges that I'm getting to say, hey, pay attention. And so having to pay attention and really ask those questions, okay, what am I feeling when that is aggravated or in pain or whatever is showing up? It's like, what is the feeling that I'm feeling with that? And that will lead me into what is really going on with me. And, my husband had been unwell and he was in hospital. And so that really threw me out and set me, I suppose, they're overwhelmed because, it makes you stop and think or stop and feel where you're at. And it's like, no, it's not time for you to go now.
Mm.
And I felt really selfish about that. I felt selfish that
Mm.
I was thinking of myself because I
Mm.
didn't want you to go just yet. And, so that led me down the track that, everything that is happening that's really good for me, I lose.
Yeah. I
So
love how you brought up a couple of different types of discomfort, right? There's the physical discomfort
yeah.
that can help us pay attention to our emotions if we haven't been paying enough attention already. And then those physical signs pop up. A lot of times I talk to clients about, yeah, when we have these physical things pop up, it's usually because we didn't listen when our
Mm,
body was giving us those nudges. And our body is like, no, you need to stop and listen. If you won't stop, then I will stop things for you, right?
yeah.
And then I love the other type of discomfort that you talked about being selfish, feeling selfish, right?
Mm,
Um, that is uncomfortable, and we can wrestle with ourselves sometimes about what do we need to do for other people and what do we need to do for ourselves, and how do we balance that? Because
yeah.
too far in either direction isn't ultimately helpful. So I love that call out of those different types of
Yeah. So it
uh,
allowed me to then, you get curious and ask the question
mhm.
yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then Sharon, I know I think you were going to go next. Go ahead.
Yes. So the way I handle just being uncomfortable now is, and I'll just give an example. One time I was having a conversation with my husband. It was a circumstance that didn't go as preferred, and he had made a comment, and then I ended up getting really upset, and I started crying. And he said, "I feel so bad. I didn't mean to make you cry." And at my level of awareness now, I said, it's not what you said. It just means if I'm crying, that's something I have to clear within myself, and now
Yeah.
that's my level of understanding
Yes.
versus me like 30 years ago when I would just ruminate and just play that over and over and over in my head. So now, whenever I'm triggered by something or uncomfortable by something, now I really start to I breathe. That's where I really center myself so that I can really connect to that. I always say spiritual side. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So I'll connect to that spiritual side of myself. And then I'll really reflect on where is that coming from and then when I connect to spirit and I'll say, what message are you trying to tell me that I need to work on or grow from or clear? So that's very much different from when I was, in my early 20s and 30s. So I wish I had this knowledge back then. That would have been so awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for that. And I think that's beautiful that reflecting and looking at it as what do I need to get from this? And I know for myself when I get triggered or activated or whatever word you want to use, now I call it emotional gold. Right? That's the stuff that I'm like, there it is. That's what I need to look into and pay attention to, right? And so yeah, that's beautiful.
And what's
More,
funny,
yeah.
just quickly to add,
Yeah.
sometimes you think that you've already resolved it or you've moved it or you've cleared it, and then it comes back and you're
Yeah.
like, dang it, I thought I dealt with that already. And now here comes another layer. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, some
yeah.
of that emotional gold for me is the stuff that surprises me. It's yes, there is the activation or feeling triggered, but a lot of it too is I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that that was going to upset me like this or hit me like this. Okay, let's, like Denise said, let's get curious about it, right?" But you're absolutely right. Sometimes it kind of takes you by surprise and you're like, "Wait a minute. How? I thought I did that. I thought we were past that, right?" Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Maria.
Well, I'm gonna just then continue into the conversation what Sharon brought up and you, Laura. Emotional gold. I love that. I love how you
Mm.
said it is emotional gold because I handle it very similarly. And I wonder, is anybody here can just start crying on a drop of the hat?
Mhm.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So, but the concern is that it has to be a time and a space for that. So, what I noticed in my own journey, you said be present, and that is, I think, the main like gold in emotions,
Mhm.
to come back to self, be present, and just said, God, let me deal with this later. And I'm gonna process this emotion, whatever came up. If I'm anxious, if I'm sad, if I'm just hit, like Sharon said, from nowhere, and like, oh my goodness, I think I dealt with this before, but here
Mhm.
it is. And I think the empowerment in all of that is to process that emotion on the spot, feel it fully, don't resist it. It takes only 90 seconds. And then just be like, okay, I'm good to go and I'll deal with this later. But then that
Yeah.
later has to come. We can't avoid it because if we do, then as Sharon said, it's just gonna come back because it's not processed
Mhm.
properly.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you said feel it fully and don't avoid it, right? So often I think it's common practice when those uncomfortable or non-preferred emotions come up for people to say, how do I get rid of it? How do I get rid of this anxiety or this panic or this guilt or whatever it is? And so I love how you're saying feel it fully. You don't have to push it away. It's there.
Thank
That's
you.
lovely.
Because what we do, we tend to label it, as you said, either negative emotion, or we
Mhm.
completely avoid it, or we push it aside and say, I don't want to deal
Mhm.
with this. So, what
Right.
about you,
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was that?
What
What
about
about me? How do I?
you?
Yeah. So I very similarly to Sharon, I try to, create space and reflect and ask, what's the message here? What is really underneath of it? And I even had a recent situation where, my husband and I were talking about something that was fairly benign, and I noticed I was getting angry, and he was kind of like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I sat there for a minute, and one of the thing I went to me, and I was like, okay, where is the anger coming from, and what is the message? And it came to me right away, and I was like, oh, I'm angry because of this, and this. These are things, to address. And I think if we just pause for a moment and ask the question and open ourselves up to any answer. It's really important that it can't be, we know the answer and we're trying to fit ourselves into it, right? It really has to be, we open ourselves up to any answer, even if that doesn't make sense or we don't want it to be that way, and let that answer be there so that we can feel the emotion and see what message it has to give for us and what it has to give us. Yeah.
Can I add into that? Because sometimes
Yes.
the emotion, we don't have any words for our emotions and we don't know what it is. So the best thing we can do is actually feel it and really
Yes.
express that and just feel it and not imparting that on anybody else, just allowing yourself to feel it. And sometimes it's just an anger or a building, but bringing ourselves, it brings us to tears at the end of the day, and allowing that to come forward. Because sometimes when we let that happen, we can then see what everything
Yes.
is and ask the questions that instead of pushing it back down again, because that's what we do.
Yeah. And
We
that
look at
ties into,
children. Yeah, look at children.
Mhm.
They just bleh.
Right, they just feel it. Yeah. And I love how that ties into what Maria was saying before. Sometimes you
Mm.
don't have words for it, and sometimes it needs to be expressed creatively or in some other form besides naming it. Absolutely, yeah. So what about earlier in your lives, whether that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago? How would you compare how you navigate uncomfortable emotions now compared to how you did it in the past? Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
Definitely wisdom comes with more life experience. I think
Yeah.
at this age, I have a lot more tools to handle feeling uncomfortable. But years ago, honestly, especially as a Southerner and maybe a Southern American, maybe this is very cultural, but I was a big people pleaser. So I would martyr myself. I would actually shrink to try to stay off the radar, to conform, even if I didn't want to. Um, in efforts to make the other person feel more comfortable. And I would never do that now. I really embrace my uniqueness now, where before it added to my discomfort because I was different and I had different gifts. And I think with life experience, you realize those are the beautiful parts of you, and that's what you should be sharing with other people. So I would say my approach to how I handle the feelings of discomfort have changed greatly and for the better.
Good, yeah. And I love that you mentioned people pleasing because I think that is such an important piece of getting uncomfortable for those people pleasers out there, and myself included. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Um, it's really uncomfortable to think that somebody else doesn't approve or doesn't like you or doesn't agree with something. And so, in being authentic, we have to be ready to lean into that discomfort of this person might not like what I have to say. So I think that's a great call out for, getting uncomfortable. Absolutely. Would anybody else like to add to that? How do you handle things differently compared to in the past? What tools have you gained?
Yeah, I'd love to share. It's like we're brought up to be to follow suit, to tick all those boxes, to behave in a certain way. So I say it like this, I would go out into the world, around everybody else, and I would behave that way, but I would be really angry at home because I didn't know, just from the uncomfortableness of, excuse me, having to be what all these
Mhm.
boxes said I had to be, I was not comfortable in that. So I would come home and I would feel it. And I did that for, I would say, half of my life. And at times I knew when I was expressing my anger all the time that I knew it wasn't, this is not how it could be, but I didn't know any different or have anything to be able to, well, what do I need to do? And,
Mhm.
so slowly the questions came to myself that, okay, what do you need to do here? You recognize you're doing that. I started paying attention. I started becoming aware, and it just slowly got better. But it was a lot of my life, half my life was that I was angry because I wasn't living who I wanted to be. I wasn't being who I wanted to be, or being that quirky, gawky, whatever it was, I was who I am, that never was allowed to come out. So it was
Mhm.
about the next half of my life, it's been like finding that side of me, letting that quirky, gawky, fun, outrageous, whoever I am, actually come to the surface.
Mhm.
Because what I was doing, like Tracy says, is people pleasing. That's
Mhm.
all my life was, and I was angry about it, and just uncovering that. And unfortunately my children wore a lot of that, in the sense of me just being angry all the time. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
uncovering that side of it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it was so where I am now, and being able to talk to my children about that is such a beautiful gift
Mm,
for them
that's
as
great.
well.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a pin in that. I want to come back to how we help, kids or other generations. First though, Sharon or Marie, how would you like to share how you manage these emotions differently from when you used to before?
Well, I love the thread that's going through here, and what I'm hearing is that as we evolve within ourselves, that we actually start to grow our own self-love.
Mm,
And like for where I was, when I was in my early 20s, and just culturally, just how I was brought up, because I'm a second generation Korean Filipino. My parents immigrated here, and culturally, those cultures are very strict. So even though in the culture, my parents never said I love you. They never said I'm sorry, but I knew they did. But with all the constant criticism, whether it's social or academics, I heard that I wasn't good enough no matter what I did. So kind of like the people pleasing, I just kept trying to do different things so that I would please people. So when I started to grow out of that, and how I handled it back then was people pleasing, and that carried over into my marriage, where I was always trying to be the people pleaser, and I swore I would never become my mom, and I became my mom. Even though I was like a hard-headed, bulldog in the court. But at home in my social life, I was still very much my mom and being the people pleaser. So as I grew within myself, and what really happened was growing my self-love. When I grew my self-love, I was able to say, no, I am worthy of love. I am enough. And I think that was the big one. When I realized I was enough, then that's how I now handle no longer the people pleaser. So I just say, it's okay. It's okay that we don't agree, and it's okay that you don't agree with me. And I'm okay with that. And that carried on to the whole dating scenario too, because Sharon dating day one, was very different than Sharon dating day 700. Sharon dating day one was a little timid, very shy. Oh, I don't know if I want to say hi to this guy. I'm scared. Sharon dating day 700, I in my mind believed that there was a line of guys waiting to talk to me because I am worthy, and they are auditioning for the job of my husband, and it's up to me for them to earn it, and I get to choose. So that was a
Yeah.
huge shift for me. So that's the difference between
Yeah.
it's all about the
Yeah.
self-love.
Yeah. I love that idea of like they're lined up waiting for me. They're auditioning to be my husband. That is so powerful, right? And comes from such an empowered place. And I love that you called out this thread of self-love. Because yes, self-love is what heals us, right? And when we start to love ourselves, we do have to sit with the discomfort of how others perceive that, whether it's disappointing people or they disagree with us. But truly, that stepping into self-love and coming back to ourself involves a lot of letting go of what other people think, and that's uncomfortable. Absolutely. That's so beautiful. I'm gonna hang on to that auditioning to be my husband. I love that. Yes. Maria, what are your thoughts?
I love what I'm hearing, and all I'm hearing is self-love, and I love that for all of you. And I love that for me too. And I want to ask for permission. Can I be a little bit controversial?
Yes, please.
So, what I'm noticing is, yes, I do love myself, but I think I started loving myself more like my child self. So it's not being childish, but being child again. And for
Mhm.
me, that means controversial opposite of what I'm hearing from you girls is that I started people pleasing again, but not in a sense that I am a doormat, more in a sense of service. Because I noticed the pattern in my life, and that goes from marriage to children and business. And being the fifth year in a business, where I noticed that everything I'm trying is just not working. And it's going downhill. So to turn things around, I needed to become like childlike, to become of service, to become of trust, to become of dedication, to become of everything as a child, so that I can lift myself up and lift up the people around me. Because my mind went back, okay, so what did I do in my marriage to begin with to work? And so 34 years on, it's working. So that was deciding and committing. Then what did I do with my children? Instead of being, as Denise said, I was like behind the doors, I was somebody different what the people thought I was. And I was this angry mom. And then what did I do? Committed, decided I'm gonna change. And that same became in a business as well. Who I am behind the closed door when clients and social media doesn't know me. So I had to become, and I'm still becoming, the child who is still wanting Naya to serve, but in the
Mm.
same time loving myself and not being childish, but to listen, to understand.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, that coming into service. And I don't know that it is that controversial. I think as long as we show up in service without abandoning ourselves, then I think yes, giving and self-love can exist at the same time. So I love that. I love that you kind of bring it back around. You're right. You're like, no, at this point, I'm kind of turning back and healing our inner child. That's incredibly important, right? And we have to go sit with those child emotions, not necessarily childish emotions, but emotions that younger version of ourselves. Um,
Yeah,
was, experienced. Yeah, yeah.
staying
Which probably,
controversial. Yeah, I thought
yeah,
I'm gonna people please. I'm gonna please you all
yeah.
and just ask for permission because this is, I think, a real true love comes from to people,
Hmm.
people to still make sure that we staying inside those boundaries and taking care of other people. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that kind of leads us into, oh, Denise, did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're speaking from the heart and it's truth.
Mm.
And it's like we shouldn't need to ask permission to speak the truth,
Mm.
because the truth is what we all want to hear. And the truth is that this is how I'm feeling and this is what is happening within in me. So the truth can't go out there and offend anybody. And if it does, then then I've got to come back and go, like Laura said, this is no, Sharon said, oh, this is mine. This is what
Mm.
I've got to look at. Why
Yeah.
does that truth offend me? Or
It's
make
more of
me
a
feel
mirror.
uncomfortable? Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, never ask
absolutely.
permission.
Well, thank you so much for lining up to hear my truth.
Yeah. And I also think it's important, if that's your truth, then that's the truth of other people out there as well, right? That's what they're feeling as well. So even if that doesn't align with what somebody else says, there are other people out there who need someone to say, well, wait a minute, what about this other aspect or what about this other part of it? Absolutely. Yeah. We've kind of talked a bit about, children, right? And I know somebody earlier, I don't remember if it was Tracy or Sharon, mentioned, I wish I would have known this, 20 years ago, right? And so I'd love to hear from everyone. What are your thoughts on how we can pass on all of this knowledge about being uncomfortable and the power it has? How do we pass this on to future generations and help them get to from where we were to where we are? What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, Denise, go ahead.
Yes, I love this because, you know, through un through seeing ourselves and knowing the truth of ourselves and getting into that discomfort and healing ourselves, we are then our children see the change.
Mhm.
And I always spoke to my kids when I was searching myself, when I was becoming aware of myself, you know, um, always remember that what you do, say, and be will dictate the outcomes of your day, whether it be today, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be 10 years from now, it will follow you until you decide which way you're going to go. Because there's no right or wrong or in anything, and it's a path, we it's a path that we decide to take. So one's longer than the other, and one's more uncomfortable than the other. And
Mhm.
I love that I'm able, even with my grandchildren, to be able to be the person I am now, to show them or to be that love that, my child within me never received.
Mm.
Because I'm loving myself so greatly now, I'm able to give more love and
Yeah,
being able to speak, like saying to Maria, is speaking the truth. And the truth is going to hurt sometimes. But that's okay because it gives me the opportunity to see, to know where you are, but also gives the opportunity for the person to see where they are and what comes up for them, and for them to be able to get curious and know themselves. And I think, you know, when we watch little children, they express. They will not let you get away with anything. They are a mirror for what you're throwing out there, which is so beautiful, but yet be so uncomfortable. But if we are attuned to ourselves and align with ourselves, children can work us out really well, and they don't suffer fools, so to speak. So, if we've got kids around us, our grandkids, our own kids, they're our mirrors to
Mm.
see where we
yeah,
are.
yeah,
So it's beautiful.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just allowing them, like I say to my daughters with their children, allow them. I heard a quote, a beautiful quote. allow them to do things if they're doing things dangerously carefully, that's okay.
I like
That's
that. Yes.
okay.
Dangerously carefully.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you shouldn't be there to catch them only when they're falling.
Sure. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Sometimes we've got to
Yeah.
let them fall and help them
Yeah.
climb out.
Let them get uncomfortable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or help them when they're out of it.
Absolutely.
Because this is,
Yeah.
we've been dictated to, or myself, I've taken on all the roles of everybody else as a child and not knowing myself. Allowing our
Mhm.
children to know themselves is for them to get uncomfortable,
Yeah.
them to
Yeah.
do things dangerously, carefully. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
make them walk off a bridge. Come on.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's allowing them
Wow.
to climb the bars that look really high that I might be unsure about. But if they're going, Mummy, I want to climb that, just be there.
Like that. Yeah. What are
Yeah.
thoughts from, and Tracy, I think you had unmuted yourself for a moment. What are your thoughts?
I just quickly wanted to say in response to Denise, I didn't mean, I wasn't laughing at what you were saying. I was laughing because I have a 13-year-old teen son, and boy, do I hear things that I have said to him that come parroting back to me. So it's not only small children and grandchildren, but also teenagers. They definitely will call you out on things. And I think that's really healthy, because I am a people pleaser. It takes courage for me to speak my truth and be authentic, because sometimes what I have to say I feel like is controversial, Maria. And so I do come from a background of wanting to ask permission, but it's like exercise. The more I exercise the muscle, the better and the easier it becomes, the better it feels to me. Um, and I'm sorry, what was the the original question, Laura?
That's okay. We were talking about how do we help future
Oh,
generations
right.
learn what we have learned about being uncomfortable?
Thank you. So, what I wanted to say is there's a poet named Adrienne Rich, and she says one of the best things that one woman can do for another is to illumine her sense of possibility. And I think just by sharing our own experiences with younger women and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and even sharing where we've made mistakes, where we didn't show up, where we weren't able to find our voice and speak up for ourselves. And the more that we can model that setting boundaries are a form of self respect, and that speaking our truth is a form of self respect, that mentorship is so important. I think even more now with the influences of social media and things, not just young women, but all the younger generations. There, studies are coming out to show all these kids are getting depression because they feel like they are less than, because everyone has these perfect sculpted lives on Facebook and Instagram. And so one way I have really tried to give back in the last few years is to go to my alma mater and to go to high schools and to go to colleges and say, look, I've led an unconventional path. I've been a female in mostly dominated fields in law enforcement and military. And um, I used to want to act like the men until I realized how powerful it is to just allow myself to be me. And I think mentoring and trying to speak to the younger generations is key whenever you can, even if it's the power of one, right? Even if you just speak to one person, if they're in your family or at a gathering, or I don't know, at the grocery store in line, I think it does make a difference.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I love how you talk about, kind of spreading that word, right? Maybe it's not just with your kids, it's how do I have a larger voice, and telling kids it's okay to be yourself. It can be uncomfortable to be yourself in a society that discourages that, but it's okay to do that kind of uncomfortable. Absolutely. Thank you. Does anybody else want to add to that?
You go, Sharon.
Yes, thank you. I think for me, it's just living what I believe and living my authentic self, and just how I show up in the world. and how I show up in front of my kids and the rest of my family, that in and of itself is modeling, and when I'm having a discussion or if I'm upset about something, I'm an open book. I will talk and then talk and talk, but they'll see and hear the process, and and I believe that they're taking it in. So I think part of it is modeling, and all, yeah, and it's also where I just make sure that I'm always present in their lives, and making sure that I'm always very and authentically interested in what they're doing. Because even if it's, Pokemon or a video game, I will ask questions, because that's where the bond happens. And when they have that bond, when something is super serious, then they're going to feel comfortable to be able to talk to me. And I saw you handle this situation like this. This is what I'm dealing with. Can I use some of those tools, or is there something else I could do that's something similar? So I just really want to have an open door and just to model it within my life. And I think that's a way that the generation can learn.
I love that. And I love that pairing of modeling and showing interest, right? Modeling how to do it, and then also showing interest to say, I'm open to whoever you are, right? Show me who you are. Show me what you're interested in. I think, yeah, that's such a powerful combination of things to give our kids. Yeah. Maria, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you. So I'm assuming, Laura, you have children too.
I do. I do.
So we all have children. I love, again, I'm gonna reflect back to Sharon, what you, Sharon, said. I always said, I'm never gonna be like my mom. And then one day I look in the mirror and like, I am her. I am so her. But returning to childlike, to be childlike is taught me that now I understand. I totally understand where my mom was. And having two grown-up children, I think starting my new business as well. So the business model I'm running now is journaling, scrapbooking, and art in order that we express our feelings, express ourselves without the words, because I truly believe that with our words, we are creating the world. So what I didn't know before, I was always negative. I was speaking my frustrations, I was speaking my sadness, I was speaking my anger, I was speaking into the ether, everything that I didn't wanted. And I didn't really prayed into and spoke over myself what I wanted. So what we do now, we scrapbook and we journal everything that we don't want. And when it comes to speaking, to say what I want to leave to the next generation as an empowerment. As a mom, I said to them, sorry, I was wrong here. I done this wrong. Please forgive me for that. Please forgive me for this, because now I understand where my mom was coming from and what my perception of it was, how my perspective was formed, my beliefs, and then I understand and I want you to know this. And then I tell them, I speak into the existence that what I would want it to be, but it wasn't. So that makes some kind of repair for them to know, okay, I am safe now to be like my mom, which
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of triggered that in me, Sharon, and I felt it. I felt it in my body, and I thought, oh, well, this is the truth. This is so what I'm doing, and you confirming it. So I think that could empower every woman to just know that speak into our children that there is yet to be, and speak into the ether, into the world, that what it is sorry for, so it can change, it can turn around.
I think that apology to our kids is so valuable and powerful, because how many people out there wish that they had an apology for their parents for some hurt, right? That's so powerful. I know so many people out there who are desperate for an apology from their parents. And so I think offering that up is beautiful. It reminds me of something that I haven't quite needed recently, but I know when my kids were younger and things, got a bit more hectic, and my kids are teenagers now. But I remember when they were younger, sometimes I would lose my temper, or I would handle a situation a way I didn't like. And so I started to make this practice of, when things calmed down, I would go back into their room or wherever they were, and I'd sit down with them and I'd say, you know what? I don't like how I handled that situation. And if I could have a do-over, here's what I would do instead. I would do it this way, right? Both to practice for myself, let my mind run through how I want to handle this situation so I can be more likely to do it in the future, but also to tell my kids, like, these are the parts that I'm not proud of. These are the parts that you know, if I had been thoughtful enough about it, I would have done it differently. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so beautiful.
And I love your
And
plaque on your wall, be present. It
oh,
is
thank you.
it is so powerful because being present, you're hearing from the people what they actually need.
Hmm.
Where all this came from is this, I never heard from my father saying, I am proud of you. And
Mm,
I have been told in my childhood, you are such a curse. And
mm,
just, not even going into the history, which doesn't even matter because I can't change it. But people, when we present to the people, people change it for us. And
mm.
recently, a mentor told me, I apologized. I said, I'm so sorry. I did not hear your testimony. My internet cut out. I am so sorry. And he said, don't worry. You are a blessing to me. And that made up for 20 years of my life that my father didn't ever said that he was proud of me or that I mattered. So just being present to other people is just
Mm.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yes. Denise, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I love that because you're not going in there. I love how you handled that, Laura. And
Mm,
that's such a picture for all of us to do, is that you're not going in there saying what happened was bad. You're
mm,
actually saying that, oh, I don't like how I did that. So if I had a do-over, this would happen. Because if we say, oh no, that's terrible, it was this, then what you're doing is not allowing the discomfort of what they
mm.
felt then to be
Yeah.
able to see the difference.
Yeah.
Because
And
yeah, which is, I'd like to honor you for that, because that was beautiful.
well, thank you.
Such a
Thank you.
beautiful way
Thank
to do
you.
it,
Yeah.
instead of keep saying I'm sorry and having nothing after that,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and I
And
think,
it's
like
like,
Sharon said,
yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's like my children, I said, you know, I can't change anything, but I'm sorry that you had to endure that, you
And I
know.
think there's a bit of what Sharon was saying as well, with modeling
Yeah,
it, right? With
yeah,
going back and saying, okay, I'm gonna have this uncomfortable conversation and say that I didn't handle it in the way that I wanted. That's uncomfortable for us
yeah.
to admit that to ourselves and other people. Absolutely.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
allows us to
And
be really vulnerable and show them how to be really vulnerable, and that vulnerability is okay.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And I'll add one other way that I, kind of back to my kids, because that's that's the most examples that I have in terms of how to help them be uncomfortable. I remember not too long ago, my son, something happened that he was just really, really disappointed in the outcome. And we tried a thing or two to see if we could change the situation, and it turned out that we could not change the situation. And so I sat there with him and I was like, this is really disappointing. Yeah, I can tell you're disappointed. This is not how you wanted it to turn out. And how can I support you right now? And of course he was grumpy, and there was nothing there, right? But just extending that explanation. Yeah, you're really disappointed. I hear that you're disappointed. Makes sense. And how can I support you right now? Even if your kid can't voice how they want to be supported, even putting that out there for them to, hopefully it swirls around a bit, and maybe one day down the road they'll ask themselves that, how do I want to be supported right now? So that's another bit of how, I'm trying to help my kids, is to say, like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd love for us to, oh yes, Maria, please.
I just wanted to add to it. I love your shares and I love how you um approaching your children. I wish I could have a do-over, but I can't. because they left the house, they are all grown up. But I just would like to add to it what happens when we are actually knocked back, because it happens to me sometimes because the children are grown up now. I can't do over. So when I am knocked back in apology or you should have done better, and yet that really hurt me, well, we can't go back. So then I said, I'm so sorry, but how, as you said, Laura, how can I support you right now? And
Mhm.
right now you are an adult. So I haven't loved this version of you before. Let me love you
Mm,
the way you want to be loved now. So
yeah.
that's something powerful we can do when we don't get a chance to repair. That's one way of how I repair things.
Oh, I love that. How can I show you love in this version of you, this age? I think that's beautiful.
Mm.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so I know we're getting close to time, so I'd love for us to go around and share a tip that you have for the people listening or watching as it relates to getting uncomfortable. What words of wisdom can you leave them? Or if somebody is saying it's too much, it's too uncomfortable, how can you support them and help them see that there's growth in discomfort? Does anybody want to volunteer to go first with a tip?
I will.
Yes.
I feel learning to feel. Learning to feel into the discomfort, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's grief, but
Mhm.
just being open to feel, being open to name that feeling. So, why am I feeling angry? Allow yourself to explore that. Because you can still be angry while you're exploring. That's okay. And just remember how you're feeling is okay.
Mm.
And just
That's powerful.
just get curious, be explorative, ask questions, because we ask everybody else the questions.
Mm.
We ask, oh, I see you're not looking so great, what's going on? But am I asking myself that? Oh, I'm not feeling great. What's going on? And we run to the doctor or we run somewhere else to get answers, but the answers are actually within us. We
Mhm.
have all the answers we require and we know them and they're in there. We've just pushed them down. So when I feel, wow, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? What is it? Get really curious. Ask yourself question after question. And if you feel silly, that's okay
Mhm.
because it is a practice. It is something that you shift into. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's just giving yourself permission and being okay to receive what is here for me. Surrender
Yeah.
into that.
Yes, I love that. What you're feeling is okay, and ask yourself questions, and the answer is within you. Those are all
Mm.
beautiful messages. Yes. Would anybody else like to go next? Yes, Sharon.
So, my tip is if you are feeling that you are wanting a change in your life for something different or better, if you go back to what you would, and I always go back to asking what you would love in your own life, because that whatever you would love is truly aligned with your soul and that
Mm.
spiritual side of yourself. And when you start to take, even if it's a micro step towards whatever it is that you are loving, it's going to be uncomfortable, but if you know that it is moving you in and energetically and moving you forward towards that vision of what you would love, which is aligned with your true authentic self, then it's okay. And just know that that being uncomfortable is a sign of growth. If you don't
Mm.
have that uncomfortableness, then you're in your comfort zone and
Mhm.
there's no movement. So the fact that you're rattling the cage a bit, that's good, and that's actually the really good news. So just remind yourself it's good news. I'm still moving forward. So
Yes. Yes. And I love that you point out that we don't grow in our comfort zone, right? That it doesn't happen. We need to get uncomfortable in order to grow. Absolutely. Yes. Who would like to go next?
I will.
Yes, Tracy.
I agree with what Sharon said. Instead of being stagnant, let that fear fuel you of the unknown, of dreaming bigger. If you look back at times in your life of things that you've achieved that you thought maybe were impossible initially, it's a great way to look back and say, well, I made it through that. Because 99% of the time, on the other side of that fear, if you can get through it by maybe using mindfulness tools, whether it's journaling or yoga or any mindful practice, whether it's holding a crystal or taking a nature walk, what have you, if you can figure out what tools can keep you calm during that tumult and during that transition, most of the time on the other side of that fear is something really fabulous and something better.
I love that. Yes, reminding yourself that this has benefit, right? It's not just the uncomfortable stuff, it's the uncomfortable stuff and what's on the other side. Absolutely. Yeah, lovely. Maria, do you have a tip you'd like to share?
Yes, if I can leave you with anything, I would go back to very beginning and say, when it comes to processing the emotions, I would encourage everybody to feel it fully. Every emotion lasts only 90 seconds, and then we can move on and process it later. And I think the secret of it is to capture that thought. What just happened? And Denise was saying, be curious. And concern is that sometimes nobody can tell us how to feel when it comes to grief or the pure joy. And I'm talking about losing a loved one or the birth of a child. Nobody has to tell me how to feel. But when it comes to the triggers, it's a little bit different. So that's what I mean by capture your thoughts. And if I get angry, okay, I'm angry. That's undeniable. I am super angry. But then I let that emotion go through me for 90 seconds. And then I don't have time to be angry now because I need to be present to you. You are hurting. You are telling me about how wonderful the graduation was last night. I am fully present to you. And then when I have time, I sit down, and that would be my encouragement and empowerment to everyone. Go back and pull out that captured thought and say, okay, what happened in that meeting? I was so angry. And then feel it fully.
Yes. And I love that you connect feeling it and being present, right? Feeling it as a way so that we can come back to the present and not miss out on important things because of that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think the secret really is in recognizing what is feeling and what is emotion. So emotions just flow through us, but feelings are something big and great that we cannot push aside, and we have no control over it, like sadness, pure grief, or pure joy. But the emotion is just something that flows through us, and we can come back to it later. And also, if we don't feel this emotion fully, then it's gonna keep coming back until it turns into a feeling. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is what spirals into depression because we did not process that. So
Yes, yes. And that actually leads very well into my tip, which is the idea that you can feel uncomfortable now or you can feel uncomfortable later. You get to choose, but it's going to come, right? If we don't sit with these uncomfortable emotions now, they will chase us and chase us and chase us, right? So we're going to feel uncomfortable either way, but we get to choose. Do it now or do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Denise.
Yeah, I'd like to also say a tip is, we like to think logically, but emotions aren't logic. Feelings isn't
No,
logic.
not at
So
all.
just remember that, we want to make sense of everything. Emotions aren't sense-based, they're just feeling. So, sometimes we have to drop the logic because it doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't have both.
Yeah. And I find that that happens a lot when our minds don't line up with our body. Our minds say, well, logically, I shouldn't be upset or this or that. And our body says, I don't care about your logic. I know I felt uncomfortable in this situation in the past. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yes, I love that, dropping the logic and
Yeah.
just
Our logic is
feeling
limited.
it rather
Yeah.
than, yeah,
Yeah.
feeling it rather than trying to convince ourselves that we should feel a different way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you. Perfect. And then Sophia, I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
And thank you, Laura. I want to be respectful of your time and yes, and everyone else's time. This has been an incredible conversation. I've been sitting here just going, wow, such wisdom and sharing because it's really all truly about, getting uncomfortable with ourselves so we can grow. So I want to thank you all. Honor you, Laura, and thank you, Denise and Maria, for coming back from Australia, and our beautiful Sharon and Tracy, who's joining us for the first time from the US. I know it's getting late for you guys, so it's really, really appreciated. For everyone out there who is watching, whether it's the live or the replay, do click on the links and reach out to these amazing women who have just given up an hour of their time. And while you're there, check out Sacred You at sacredyou.love. You can come and join us for free in the village by putting a / join free. We have got so much to offer, including more wisdom circles for another couple for this year. And then Laura will be back for another edition of this wisdom circle in February next year. We've got so much on offer. So do check that out by clicking on the links below. So thank you and have a beautiful day wherever you are. And it's time to get uncomfortable with ourselves so we can grow into who we're meant to be. Thank you.